You've probably complained about flight delays while assuming pilots are taking you in a straight line. But they're not, and you'd arrive later if they did. Why does the shortest route on a globe look curved on your flight tracker? What are pilots secretly avoiding that passengers never see? How does the Earth's spin change the path under you mid-flight? And why do eastbound flights feel faster than westbound, even when it's the same plane? And here's the part that'll make you check your next boarding pass. Why do some routes swing dramatically north over places you'd never associate with your destination? Pull up any flight tracker app right now. Watch that arc. Your brain screams, why not just go horizontally across? But here's the thing. A plane never flying straight means the path from New York to London that looks curved on your screen is actually the shortest possible route. It just doesn't look straight, because you're used to flat maps, not spinning spheres. Horizontal on a map isn't horizontal in three-dimensional space. That curve isn't a detour. It's geometry betraying your intuition. Every time you've glanced at that little airplane icon creeping across your seatback screen, you've been watching the most efficient path possible. It just looks wrong because your reference frame is broken. You grew up thinking planes fly in arcs to dodge storms or save fuel by riding jet streams, basically detours around the real route. That belief formed because we all grew up staring at Mercator projection maps, those rectangular classroom wall maps that stretch the top and bottom of the globe to fit a rectangle. Greenland looks massive, almost the size of Africa. Canada looks wider than it actually is, and straight lines across the middle look perfectly logical. The Mercator projection was designed in the 1500s for sailors who needed compass bearings to stay constant, not for understanding shortest distances. It warps your perception of planetary geometry. But that detour arc you see is actually a great circle route, the absolute shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere. Your map taught you to expect straight. The Earth said no. But here's where it gets weirder. Geometry isn't the only thing bending your flight path. I'd imagine a string pulled tight across a basketball between two thumbtacks. It won't follow the horizontal line of the ball's equator unless both pins are on the equator. It cuts diagonally because that's shorter. That's a great circle, the tightest possible connection between 2 points on a curved surface. Now translate that to planes. Flying from New York to Tokyo, the shortest route cuts up over Alaska and the Arctic Circle. Looks absolutely insane on a flat map, like you're going wildly out of your way. Saves over 1,000 miles in reality. But there's a second mechanism actively twisting your path mid-flight: jet streams. These are rivers of wind screaming along at 100 to 200 miles per hour at cruising altitude, roughly 30 to 40,000 feet up. They form because the Earth spins faster at the equator than at the poles, creating temperature and pressure differences that birth these high-altitude wind highways. Pilots deliberately ride them eastbound because tailwind equals free speed. You're literally being pushed by a river of air. They dodge them westbound because headwind equals fuel drain and wasted time. So that New York to London flight takes about 7 hours eastbound but 8 hours westbound. Same plane, same aircraft, same distance, different air river. The jet stream just saved you an hour and thousands of pounds of fuel. Now here's the surprise most passengers miss. The Earth is spinning at roughly 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, but your plane isn't fighting that rotation. It's already moving with the Earth because the atmosphere spins too. Well, you took off spinning. You're flying spinning. You'll land spinning. You're not battling physics. You're riding it. But if the air spins with the planet, why do jet streams even exist? Because while the atmosphere rotates with Earth, it doesn't rotate uniformly. The equator moves faster than the poles because it has more distance to cover in the same 24 hours. That speed difference creates shear zones where fast-moving tropical air meets slower polar air, and those boundaries become jet streams. Pilots don't just fly geometry, they actively surf invisible atmospheric currents that shift daily. Here's where people get confused: Great Circle Route versus Rhumb Line. A rhumb line is what looks straight on a flat map. It crosses every meridian, every longitude line at the same angle, which made life dramatically easier for old sailors with compasses. Set your bearing once, maintain it, and eventually you reach your destination. Constant heading, simple navigation, no complex calculations. But it's longer. A great circle crosses meridians at constantly changing angles, which sounds nightmarish for navigation but is always shorter. Sailing ships in the age of exploration used rum lines because they couldn't constantly recalculate angles while fighting storms and scurvy. Modern planes use great circles because GPS doesn't care about angle changes. It only cares about distance, and it recalculates your position every second. Quick second contrast: polar routes versus equatorial routes. Planes flying near the poles use extreme great circles, arcing dramatically over the Arctic in ways that look deranged on flat maps. And Singapore to New York, straight over the North Pole. Equatorial flights look almost straight on maps because the equator itself is already a great circle, the widest circle you can draw around the Earth. Geography dictates the curve. Your destination determines how dramatic it looks. Rewind to the 1940s and 50s. Early commercial jets couldn't fly polar routes. Engines weren't designed for temperatures that could hit 60 below zero. The routes were too remote. If something went wrong, there were no emergency airports within reach. Passengers and crew would freeze before rescue arrived, so pilots stuck to lower latitude arcs even when the math screamed go north, because survival trumped efficiency. Then came the 1990s. Engine technology evolved. Modern turbofans became cold-proof, reliable in Arctic conditions. Then ETOPS certification arrived. Extended range twin operations, which let twin-engine planes fly more than 5 hours from the nearest suitable landing strip. Before ETOPS, you needed 3 or 4 engines for remote routes because regulations demanded you always stay within reach of an emergency runway. ETOPS changed everything. Suddenly, airlines unlocked shortcuts nobody could legally or safely use before. Los Angeles to Dubai became a straight shot over the North Pole, saving 2 hours of flight time and tons of fuel. The globe opened up. Routes that were theoretical became operational overnight. And now that shortcut is hiding in plain sight every time you fly, and you've probably never noticed. You've been encountering great circles without realizing it. Under flight tracker apps like Flight Radar 24 or the airline's own app show every single international route curving. Zoom out and you'll see hundreds of arcs simultaneously, none of them straight. Google Earth's ruler tool, draw a line between 2 cities and watch it bend into an arc, because Google Earth renders on a sphere, not a flat plane. Globe decorations in classrooms with string routes stretched between pins. That string is physically demonstrating the Great Circle, because string pulled tight can't lie. Airline route maps and seatback magazines aren't making artistic choices when they show those arcs. Those curves are geometrically accurate representations of the paths planes actually fly. Weather maps showing jet stream highways as thick, colorful bands. Pilots literally surf these, checking them before every flight. Then Antarctic expedition routes always arc around or across the continent because you can't go straight across a sphere. Even the South Pole is just another point on a ball. Submarine internet cables on the ocean floor follow great circles to minimize cable length and installation cost. Every mile of cable costs money, so engineers use the same math as pilots. Emergency landing news stories about planes diverted to Iceland or Greenland. These places sit perfectly on great circle shortcuts between North America and Europe, which is why they have oversized airports for their population. Your own flight confirmation email listing duration as 14 hours eastbound but 16 hours westbound. That's the Jetstream tax printed right there in your itinerary. Pilot announcements mid-flight saying, "We're taking a northern route today to catch favorable winds," are code for Great Circle plus Jetstream combo, optimized in real time. Even flat Earth debunkers use flight paths as ironclad proof the Earth is round, because flat map routes would waste thousands of miles of fuel that airlines would never, ever burn when their profit margins depend on fuel efficiency. But here's the reality check. Great circles save distance, but pilots don't always fly them perfectly. Weather avoidance trumps geometry every single time. A massive thunderstorm sitting directly in your ideal great circle means mandatory detour. No debate. Airspace restrictions matter too. Some countries charge hefty overflight fees. Others ban foreign aircraft entirely. Russia controls massive airspace and charges accordingly. North Korea is a no-fly zone for most carriers. Active conflict zones get avoided regardless of geometry. Suddenly, your perfect mathematical route costs too much money or becomes politically or legally impossible, forcing a longer path that costs less or avoids danger. And sometimes the fuel versus time math flips the script. A slightly longer route with a 100-mile-per-hour jet stream tailwind can beat a shorter Great Circle route where you're fighting a 50-mile-per-hour headwind the entire way. Pilots run these calculations before every long-haul flight. When your flight goes around something or takes what looks like a detour, it's usually weather, politics, wind economics, or airspace fees. Not incompetence, not conspiracy, not pilots forgetting basic geometry, just professionals doing math you don't see, made optimizing for variables you never considered. You thought that curved line on your screen was a detour, maybe even a mistake. Reality: it's the straightest possible path on a three-dimensional spinning sphere. Your map was lying, not the pilot. The next time you see that arc bending dramatically over Greenland or Alaska, you'll know the Earth isn't flat, your route isn't wasteful, and those jet streams are literally pushing you home faster than any straight line ever could. It's not just curved flight paths. It's the hidden geometry of living on a spinning sphere, and every trip you've ever taken has been quietly optimized by math that's older than aviation itself, used by sailors centuries before the first plane ever left the ground.